You don't have to watch much woodwork on YouTube before you find someone building a butcher's block cutting board, but not here on Proper DIY. No, no, no. We build the whole butcher's block, but there is a reason for it. This is the first of two videos where I want to build a butcher's block island. You know, the sort of thing with a butcher's block on the top and a couple of drawers on a stand and on casters that I can move around the kitchen, use it as a work surface, or stick it in the corner and store things on it. So today I'm going to be purely focusing on that butcher's block work surface, which is a project in itself. Now, it's really important for me to get this one right and looking like a traditional butcher's block, because my dad was a butcher. So all the time I was growing up to the age of about 18 or 20, I was in and out of his shop literally every day, working there sometimes for hours, days, or sometimes weeks, especially coming up to Christmas, cleaning out chickens and turkeys and tying them up, and sometimes also cleaning the butcher's block at the end of the shift with bleach and water and a wire brush. So I know the features, more than most people, of a traditional British butcher's block, and I want to replicate all of those into my build, because if I don't, every time I look at it, I'm going to be kicking myself forevermore. Now, the first feature that most people know about is that it's made out of end grain. This is because end grain tends to stand up better to knives and cuts than face grain, and it also means that there's less chance of getting little splinters in the meat. The other thing you find with traditional butcher's blocks are they are really heavy and thick. Some of them are at least 6 inches, sometimes 8 inches thick, and weigh a ton. This is so they last longer. So as you use them, especially as you clean them with a wire brush, they tend to wear down and the working surface tends to bow, and eventually you can turn it over and use the other side. Most people, when they build a butcher's block top, miss this and it ends up just a couple of inches thick. So I want something replicating a proper block. The other thing you find is that around the perimeter, there's also timber holding the whole thing together with angle brackets on each corner. Most butcher's blocks are made out of maple or beech or oak, and I'm going to be using oak today just because I've got lots of it around the house. And the other thing that most people don't notice is that they're held together in each direction with threaded bar and nuts. And sometimes you can see the nuts on the side, but if you can't, you can normally spot a circular wooden cap that's hiding that nut. So I want to make it look as traditional as possible and give it some thickness, although I don't want to make it solid, because if I'm building it in oak, I'll never be able to lift the blimmin' thing. So I'm going to need to sort that one out. The other problem I have is I'm not a pure woodworker, so I don't own a planer thicknesser. So starting with lots of little bits of oak and putting them all through a thicknesser is impossible for me. So I've come up with a plan B, and this is what I'm starting with, which is an unfinished solid oak work surface made up of lots of little bits of oak all machined and then glued together, which is a standard work surface that you can buy for your kitchen. I bought this one off of Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. You can essentially get them to whatever length you want. And this is a strip that I just cut from it, and it's 40 millimeters thick. You can get them at different thicknesses. So my plan is to cut these into strips, this being the first one, and then flip them 90 degrees. So essentially that first part of the process, which is planing all your oak down to the same thickness and then sticking them together, because I haven't got a planer thicknesser, I just can't do. So I'm paying someone else who's already done it for me, which speeds things up and means it's possible for me to then cut and then turn these at 90 degrees, ending up with the end grain rather than the face grain. So I'm going to have to cut lots of strips here. Now, my intention until 5 minutes ago was to run this, like you see on YouTube, through a table saw. But I've had a bit of a brainwave because my plunge saw makes a really good cut even in oak. So what I'm thinking is, because this is so heavy, and the fact that a lot of people don't have table saws, rather than just doing the same as everyone else on YouTube, I'm going to be taking the saw to the piece rather than the other way around, to see how I get on. So I think what I need to do is set this up, just do a test cut with the saw, just to make sure that the blade is absolutely at 90 degrees to the base plate, because I want a vertical cut, because if I don't, when I twist them, it's all going to be higgledy-piggledy, and I'm going to be doing so many it's best for me to check that now. And then get my mask on and my ear protection and all that, and keep cutting. If you're making something like this, whether you use a table saw or a plunge saw, it is really important to get that blade at 90 degrees to the base plate so you make a perfectly vertical cut, because if you don't, what you end up with is lots and lots of parallelograms. So it's really important to get this absolutely precise, and using a light behind a square like this really does highlight where you've got those gaps and what you need to do to adjust the blade. Once I'm confident that my saw setup is correct, I can now just start cutting away. Width-wise, whatever width you cut these strips is going to translate into the depth of the final product, because you're flipping them 90 degrees. I don't think it really matters what depth it is, but don't go too thin. Here I'm aiming at around 40 millimeters, and the square I'm using to set the track here, I'm not going to touch until the end of this project. So I know that all of these pieces are going to be the exact same width. I'm aiming at an overall width for this block to be about 1.2 meters or about 4 foot wide. But I'm actually going to make it in 3 parts rather than trying to glue all of it up in one time. I just haven't got the big clamps to do that. But you can see here, if you don't shuffle these around a little bit, you end up with some sort of repetitive pattern, which isn't necessarily what you want. So every other one, I flip 180 degrees. So concentrating on a section that's about 400 wide, about a third of the block, I can now flip them back on their sides to add glue so I can glue the whole thing together. And the last thing I do before I clamp them up is to shift every other strip half a block along, so the blocks are actually staggered, which I think will make it stronger and just break up that block pattern a little bit so it looks a little bit more random. While I've been getting on with cutting and gluing these 3 blocks, I've split it up into 3 just so they're manageable. One thing I have found is when I do lots of cuts, because the board is made out of lots of little blocks, if you get really close to the end of them, then they can start delaminating. You can see this one here. I've cut maybe 0.5 millimeter and it's just started coming away. There's a little bit at the bottom there as well. But it's not that difficult to get around. If I see something like that and it's not been very often, then I can just turn it upside down because I'm only looking at the top face being perfect. The other thing I've been thinking of is how to make this solid top look solid, but actually isn't solid because I'll never pick it up. So what I've come up with is if I actually cut a few strips like this, which are this is just over 100 mil, then actually I can glue those on to the rest of my board. And if I've got an upstand like that at both ends and maybe a couple in the middle, then I can support it properly. It looks a lot thicker once I put the timber around the outside, and it will help support that outside timber as well. So that's the first one I've cut there. That's 110 millimeters. I think the outside timber is going to be about 120. So if I cut another, I think 3 of those, I can glue them on and then glue the whole lot together and end up with something hollow. Having said that, it's still going to be blimmin' heavy. These longer sections I glue onto my 3 original pieces, and once the glue's got some decent strength, I can then join the 3 pieces together. Because I've staggered the strips here, I can actually use smaller clamps on the outsides because the strips actually protrude, so I can at least clamp the outsides together with small clamps. My challenge is to actually clamp up the center section because, not being a woodworker, I don't have many long clamps. So I'm relying on my relatively new Jorgensen quick clamps that actually join together, and therefore I can join them together and get one good clamp down the middle. So I thought. What? And when I put it on, I'm just about 10 millimeters short. So it's a bit of a long shot, but I decided to take off the rubber ends just to see if that makes a difference. And although it's still just a few millimeters short, with a little bit of pushing and pulling, I can just about clip it on at maximum reach. I also, with a bit of higgledy-piggledy, managed to get a couple of bar clamps on, connected to a couple of quick clamps, and then with a straight edge, I can actually see how flat the top surface is. So with a couple of small wedges, I just wedge up the middle. A few hours later, with the glue gone off, I can now trim either side to its final width. I'm on the home straight now, so all I've got to do is put the perimeter around this block now. And I'm going to use some American white oak, which I think is going to match the work surface. And I've chosen the screw positions to be underneath the angle brackets on each corner, so you can't actually see them. And on the long sides, I use a Forstner bit to drill a couple of counter bores that are going to hide the nuts and the washers that are going to clamp this block together front to back. And with everything tightened up, I put a very small round over on all the edges with my router and sand everything nice and smooth. Here we go. This, I think, is what they call the money shot, isn't it? The bit everyone loves to see. Lovely. So if you're wondering, this is the food safe worktop oil. It's actually mineral oil. That's what they call it. And you can use it on cutting boards or work surfaces or where there's food around. And it does penetrate into the wood, especially the end grain, quite a long way. I've done a couple of tests just to see what the colour's like. And it probably goes maybe 20 mil into the end grain. So that's just one coat. So to say I'm happy with the way this has come out is a total understatement. I am really pleased with the end result. And I think I've captured all those important things that I've seen before in proper traditional butcher's blocks. Although the short ends are glued and screwed on, the long ends are actually just held on with screws and these two threaded bars going through, which is exactly the same as a real butcher's block, which means that you can tighten it up as it moves and shrinks over time. And this is one of the projects where I must admit, I've even surprised myself because I haven't got all the big woodworking tools that the woodworkers have got. I didn't think I'd ever do anything with end grain, but it is possible as long as you start with the main material. So this is part one. Part two is the legs and the drawers and everything that makes this a movable island. That will be early next year. Hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time.